Yeah. It's got a nice tradition. That's one of the things.
My name is Jewell Sparks, and I'm the president of Strategic Diversity Group in Inhabitants. And one of the goals of Inhabitants is to showcase thought-provoking films such as Spencer Halpin's Mortal Kombat. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Spencer Halpin right there. And
thank you.
All the way from the East Coast. And so what we're going to do is we're going to screen the film, and shortly afterwards it will be followed with the Q&A, and we'd like to invite you over to the gallery for more wine and appetizers. So enjoy. Thank you.
And welcome back. I'm Randy Gordon, and this has been a labor of love to even get a chance to help co-produce this along with Jewell Sparks from Jazz Heritage Center and Peter Fitzsimmons, and be able to have this great screening room, which hasn't even officially opened. This was like the soft launch. But this film hit me on so many levels, being the father of an 8-year-old and spending a lot of time in the video game industry, doing a lot of in-game advertising, hopefully contextually relevant. But I've met so many great people here in this space, and one of them in particular is Elizabeth Olson, who is going to be moderating this panel. She is the founding editor-in-chief of Game Informer, and I think we've known each other for about 10 to 15 years. And she spent a lot of time marketing and doing PR and so many things in the interactive entertainment space. And I'll turn it over to her now, Elizabeth Olson.
Thank you again for everybody who showed up. It was great to see a lot of old friends and colleagues in the audience and on the screen. So we'll jump right into it. I'm going to introduce you to our panelists. I'm sure most of you know the gentlemen all sitting up here, but for those of you who don't, we have Chris Kohler, who writes the Games Live section and covers games for Wired magazine. We have Lorne Lanning, the founder and president of Oddworld Inhabitants, right? And who you saw in the film. We have Spencer Halpin, the filmmaker, so I'm sure you're going to have lots of questions for him. And Dean, and also brother of Hal Halpin, because many of you know Hal, who runs the ECA. And of course, Dean Takahashi, years and years, we've known each other many years. He was covering games and technology for the San Jose Mercury News, and now doing the same for VentureBeat. So, welcome our panelists. So first, Spencer, I think it'd be really helpful if you could tell us a little bit about what was your impetus to want to create this film and how you came about the way that you did the film.
Hi, I'm Spence. I guess about 5 years ago now, I was living outside of the country, and my brother came over to visit, as he often did, and I was working on a separate film about the medical business, which I ended up shelving until this year. And he thought that it would be a quick thing to sort of make this film about the video game business, and it would sort of get me going in the right direction. It ended up taking about 4 more years to make this film, but you know, it was a great experience. I got to meet, you know, I think I can compare it more to like a thesis. You know, it was like a real education for me, not only in the filmmaking, but definitely in becoming what I am now, which is a father. So it gave me some really good tools to understand that stuff. But as far as the violence and video game issue, I'm pretty much down the middle on it. I think it's case specific scenario. When my wife and I travel, my wife's here. She's also in the video game business. We talk a lot about it. We were just in Germany and France, and there was a major shooting, I guess, that happened in Germany. People there and people that we spoke to are really sort of up in arms about this whole issue. And now they're alive and engaged in this debate. But it seems as though in the course of the past 4 years, the issue has tamed a bit in the United States, which which seems to be the natural progression of things. But I hope that answers some things, and I'm happy to answer anything else.
Well, so on the topic of violence in video games, when I sent out invitations, I heard from several people, they're like, well gosh, are we still talking about violence in video games? I was late arriving here tonight because my phone rang today, and it was the director of the IGDA, Joshua Caulfield, and he said, we received a call from Fox News. And Fox News is doing a debate tomorrow morning because, as you know, tonight, Modern Warfare 2 launches for those who aren't buying it at GameStop. They wanted to do a debate, and they already had Dan Ackerman, who was going to stand up and say, well, gosh, it's all contextual, and games are in our form and First Amendment. And they wanted to find someone that would stand up and say, it's too violent, it's too realistic, it's too gory. We have 2 wars, we have the shooting in Fort Hood. Games are evil. I said, well, I'm not going to be the person who's going to say that games are evil, since I've made my living at it for the last 20 years. And really no one at the IGDA was going to say that because they hadn't quite decided what their public stance is on it. So I got them, hopefully, Jack Thompson, so those of you that are watching Fox News tomorrow morning. But so we are still having this conversation, we are still having legislation. So I guess to get into that, I guess, Lorne, I'm going to ask you, why do you think that this debate is still so much at the forefront, still in the public mind?
I think it's pretty clear the more you look at what the legal cases have been. And because of the film, I wound up debating Jack Thompson in Philadelphia, which was interesting. And what became evident in doing the homework going into that debate, because when I got there, I said, I'm not here to debate the issue, I'm here to debate why the issue is still an issue. And that becomes very clear when we look at the media behavior. So groups, Foxy's at the top of the chain for being able to do this, but the others aren't exempt, is that what they'll do is they want the sensationalism. They will broadcast anytime there's a shooting. They will find people that have a very specific, loud, sensational, fearful opinion of it, and they will give them primetime airtime. And if you add up those minutes of airtime, it's actually a fair amount of penetration into the public mind. But then we look at the court cases and the Supreme Court decisions and court decisions in at 9 states at the time when I looked into it. And all of them, throughout all of these cases, on the basis of there's absolutely no science where you're claiming science, there's no proof where you're claiming proof, there's no record where you're claiming record. I mean, there were sham cases. And don't take my word for it, just go read them yourself. And that led me to not even want to discuss the issue because I realized he was there just to get more airtime in the scheme of things. And so those court cases and the results of that never get any airtime because that's not selling news. So we wind up with a very distorted opinion from the public perspective, those that rely on corporate media. And it's just not, the results of the court case will probably be maybe on page 9, probably on page 19 and take up a tenth of a page. Meanwhile, when the sensationalism happens, when Columbine's on the front cover, this will be on the critics with false claims that they're never held to, that I've seen in the public media, they get a lot of exposure, and that exposure compounds. But we see this in so many things. We see this in the lead up to the war. We see this in healthcare. We don't see the discussion in this country that the highest suicide rate is the elderly. We don't see the discussion in this country that the highest death of preemies in a civilized, modernized country is in the United States, out of all of the modernized countries. So there's a lot of things we just don't hear in the public mind. And this is, when it was a hot topic, it was, we could count on the coverage being in a certain direction. And I think we can continue to count on that because the media behavior isn't changing for the better. If anything, it can pretty much be proven it's changing for the worse.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a question since you're the only one in this bunch who wasn't in the film and didn't get a chance to see any of it prior to this evening. So, and also probably one of the youngest of us here. And so